Every story of the Sundering calls the Pantheon strike a triumph. It was not. Their blade cleaved Shaarj, leaving the veil of eternal blossoms a wound, not a victory. Triumph, but with thee it was not first breath of the void. What if the fracture that birthed Pandaria also split Azeroth's soul? The Sundering didn't end with a world reshaped. It began with a wound that never healed. The Pantheon's strike on Shaarj, recorded in Chronicle Vol 1 was not a triumph. Aman'Thul tore Shaarj from Azeroth's core, birthing Pandaria as a wound. This severance Azeroth's soul fractured, the world soul's tether cut did not banish the corruption. It seeded the void. The veil of eternal blossoms is not a sanctuary. It is a scar, the first fracture, the first breath of something dead and hungry. The Highborn called it harmony, the Pantheon called it order. Azeroth's soul pulsed with six forces: life, death, earth, air, fire, and the void woven in balance. No wound, no hunger, only light, only Queen Azshara's spires piercing a sky unmarked by storms. The Titans struck Shaarj not as architects of salvation, but as midwives to a birth of shadows. They severed the old god's flesh, yet left its curse intact, a seed, a rot. The curse of flesh did not corrupt Titans, it revealed what Azeroth's soul had always held, a cradle for the void. The Sundering carved Pandaria's wound, but the first breath of that wound was not pain, it was invitation. The Pantheon sealed Shaarj's prison, blind to the prison they had become. Their victory was a hinge, the void did not rise, it was unchained. Azeroth's uniqueness was its undoing, a world soul attuned to all forces, including the one the Titans feared to name. The Highborn drank from Azshara's visions, unaware their empire was a cocoon. The curse of flesh was no accident, it was an awakening, a door. What blooms in the veil of eternal blossoms is not life, it is the first echo of a dirge. The void's first breath drawn through a Titan's blade, the Highborn's spires now lean like tombstones, the world's soul still hums. But beneath the harmony a seventh force stirs. The Pantheon's chamber smelled of ozone and dying stars. Their voices, harmonized yet fractured, argued over Shaarj's fate. Light pooled where they stood, cold as a tomb's breath. To banish him, they agreed, would preserve balance. None noticed the shadow thickening at the room's edge. Azshara's throne room burned with violet flame when Sargeras offered his gift. The air tasted of iron as she signed her name in blood. Mountains groaned, the sea hissed. A Azeroth chord vibrated in the stone Azeroth's soul, now scarred. Zaval's palace shook with the weight of his refusal. His voice cracked like a blade striking crystal. "I will not kneel to your hollow salvation," he spat. The light recoiled from him. Shadows coiled in the corners, hungry. The Sundering split more than land. Azeroth's song fractured, a dissonant note where Pandaria fell. The Void Lords, patient as rot, planted spores in that wound. Old gods awoke, not as conquerors but catalysts. The world soul's pain became their harvest. One Pantheon member name lost to silence wondered if the blade that killed Shaarj also birthed the enemy. The harmony they preserved was a gilded cage. Beneath the hymn of order a dirge began. The seventh force does not whisper, it does not wait. It is the cost of every victory the Titans never saw. The veil of eternal blossoms was no sanctuary, it was a tomb. The Pantheon's strike shattered Yasharj's heart, leaving it to pulse beneath Pandaria's Shah, seeping like poison. Gasped in the void's cold breath, fractured in the no war of the ancients, split Kalimdor's spine. Mountains bled, oceans recoiled. Azeroth's soul laid bare, gasped in the void's cold breath, of their chains fractured in the no. Their hymns drowned the warning, every scar they sealed birthed a new wound. The arena's dust still hums with the Shah's dirge. The well's collapse carved a gateway, not a grave. Kalimdor's fracture was the first scream of a world unmoored. The void does not rise, it arrives asterisk. And where the world soul thinned, something ancient stirred, not a prisoner, a guest, the first fracture, the first hunger. The sky split with a sound like shattering crystal. Aman'Thul's staff blazed violet, its light carving Shaarj from Azeroth's flesh. The air reeked of ozone and burnt honeysuite, acrid, wrong. The veil of eternal blossoms bloomed in an instant, petals the color of dried blood spiraling upward as the world soul screamed. Beneath the ground, Shaarj's heart pulsed, a rhythm now mismatched to Azeroth's. The first Shaw leaked through the fracture, smoke and ember, a serpentine shadow that hissed in 7 tongues. The Pantheon watched. Aman'Thul's face was a monument. Yet his hand trembled as the staff's light dimmed. Asterisk, a wound sealed is not a wound healed. Asterisk, the chronicle whispers. The Vale's flowers never wither, but their roots drink corruption. The Shah coil in the earth, their breath turning stone to ash. For eons, the Pantheon called this a triumph. They did not hear the hum beneath the blossoms of basso chant, neither voice nor vibration, but a asterisk hunger asterisk pressing against the veil of reality. What if the Sundering's true echo was not in the stars, but in the silence left behind? The Vale's perfume clogs the lungs. Its beauty is a narcotic. And in that narcotic, the first Void Lords took root, not born of Titan hands, but fed by the world soul's slow, unhealed rupture. Shaarj's heart still beats. The 7 Shah still lake, and where their shadows pool, the void arrives not as a storm, but as a guest who never leaves. The Titans did not sever Shaarj, they severed Azeroth itself. Where the world soul's thread snapped, the void inhaled. Storm not as a severed flood, but as a wound where the Azeroth's breath world souls faltered. The veil of eternal blossoms, once cradle of life, became a womb for rot. The Pantheon's chains held the old gods, but the Void Lords. They slipped through cracks in the design, they did not emerge, they were already there. The Titans had no eyes for what they unmade. A world without a soul is a canvas for the unseen. The Vale's roots drank the severed essence, and the Void Lords planted spores in the soil of Azeroth's silence. What is a world soul if not the seed of a Titan? The Pantheon's triumph left it exposed. The Void Lords do not conquer, they gestate. Each corrupted bloom in the Vale is a heartbeat for something older. The first fracture in Azeroth's skin is not Pandaria, it is the Vale. And in its shadow the nascent world souls writhe. The Void Lords do not seek freedom, they seek parity. Azeroth's victory over Shaarj birthed a new kind of god, not chained, not dead, alive, waiting. The Vale's blossoms will not wither. They will bloom into a body. The Pantheon's blade struck true. Light seared the sky, sharp as shattering glass. Shaarj's howl drowned in a silence colder than death. Azeroth's world soul, once a pulse in the dark, frayed to a thread. The air reeked of iron and burnt ozone. Where the Titan's strike cleaved the Leviathan, a blackness bled not liquid, but absence, a void that gnawed at light itself. The first Void Lord emerged not as a conqueror, but a parasite. Its form, smoke coiled around bone, whispering in frequencies that cracked stone. It touched the wound in Azeroth's crust. The ground heaved, vomiting jagged spires of obsidian. Pandaria's sacred peaks, once crowned with mist, now exhaled a sour wind. Monks would later call it the breath of the unshackled, but the truth was quieter. A door had opened. Far beneath the surface, the old gods stirred. Their eggs, dormant in the magma veins, pulsed with new hunger. The Void Lords had seeded them long before Azeroth's birth, waiting for a world soul weak enough to rot. Now, with the Titan's strike, that rot took hold. A shuddering tremor rippled through the planet's core. The Pantheon, gazing down at their victory, felt the weight of their folly. One Titan, her eyes dim with regret, pressed a palm to the fractured earth. She felt the old god's eggshell crack. A tentacle, blind and slick, unfurled toward her shadow. Too late, she understood. The wound was not a tomb, it was a womb. Above, the sky wept ash. The Void's first breath had turned Azeroth's cradle into a battlefield. The Pantheon fled, their footprints echoing with the thunder of what they'd unleashed. And in the silence left behind, the old gods began to dream. The Pantheon's chains held Shaarj, but could not silence his rot. Their victory birthed a hollow in Azeroth's heart, a void that breathed. The old god's suffering became a seed, and from it the first Void Lords clawed free, not from Sargeras, not from the Titans. From the gap between intention and consequence. As Shara's fall taught the Highborn a lesson in ash, power bends to those who hunger, not those who rule. Her pact with the Burning Legion was no rebellion, it was a mirror. The Highborn had imprisoned a god, the Legion offered to unmake the cage. The first ones wove balance into this world, then walked away. They left the scales unguarded, the weights unmeasured. The Pantheon, for all their might, were not gods of wisdom. Their prison became a cradle, their triumph the first crack in Azeroth's soul. What does a world learn when its protectors become its wounds? When the line between salvation and slaughter is drawn in the blood of what was never meant to die. Pandaria's scar is older than the Titans' names. It is the birthplace of forgetting. The Vale's blossoms mask a stench of rot sweetness, layered over the iron tang of old blood. Where the Pantheon ripped Shaarj from Azeroth's flesh, the land still shivers. At dusk, the petals glow not with life, but with a sickly violet pulse, as if the earth itself is coughing. Here the air is colder, a frost that clings to bone, whispering in a language older than Dreenor's fall. In the war within, the Void Lords do not merely fight, they unravel. Imagine a legion marching where shadows gnaw the edges of reality, their forms shifting like smoke torn by wind. When Sardra's shards clash against the light's remnants, the sky cracks. The ground does not shake, it screams peeling back to reveal veins of black fire. A warrior there might feel not the heat of battle, but the void between Starsa Hollow so vast it starves the soul. The Titans sealed a gate, they did not see the seed. The Sundering's wound was no mere scar, it was a door left ajar. And doors once breached never close the same. The Pantheon's chains held Shaarj but could not silence his rot. Their victory birthed a hollow in Azeroth's heart, a void that breathed. The old god's suffering became a seed, and from it the first Void Lords clawed free, not from Sargeras, not from the Titans. From the gap between intention and consequence. As Shara's fall taught the Highborn a lesson in ash, power bends to those who hunger, not those who rule. Her pact with the Burning Legion was no rebellion, it was a mirror. The Highborn had imprisoned a god, the Legion offered to unmake the cage. The first ones wove balance into this world, then walked away. They left the scales unguarded, the weights unmeasured. The Pantheon, for all their might, were not gods of wisdom. Their prison became a cradle, their triumph the first crack in Azeroth's soul. What does a world learn when its protectors become its wounds? When the line between salvation and slaughter is drawn in the blood of what was never meant to die. Pandaria's scar is older than the Titans' names. It is the birthplace of forgetting. The Vale's light is not golden, it is a sickly violet, bleeding through petal-thin veils of stone. The air hums with a dissonance older than language, a chord that gnaws at the edges of thought. When the Pantheon struck Shaarj's prison, their hammers did not seal a gate. They shattered Azeroth's tether to the world soul, and the void where it once breathed now wears a crown of flowers. Azeroth's scream did not rise. It sank, the ground there grows cold not from absence but from infection. The blossoms bloom in silence, their roots drinking the world's memory. One can almost hear the phantom pulse of a heart that no longer beats. The first Void Lord was not born in fire or chaos. It woke in the scent of hyacinth and rot, cradled by the very hands that sought to save the world. Azeroth's wound did not weep.